Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Old News with Flint Dibble. And we are here to sift through all the news of the last couple weeks in the world of archaeology and, of course, fake archaeology, because there's a little bit of that going on in the news as well. Surprise, surprise, in our world today. Now, first up, we have to start with a question from the audience. Is Flint my real name or a nickname? I mean, isn't a nickname a real name anyway? I mean, names are just made up. But no, Flint is actually my real name. It's my middle name though. And so I was named Flint because my dad was an archaeologist. So that's important news for everybody related to the channel. But yes, I am Flint Dibble. I've been called Flint my entire life since I was crawling around on all fours up until the point where I could walk and talk. And so I've always answered and responded to Flint as long as I remember, which is kind of cool. So today we have definitely some fun archaeology news for you. And of course, it is going to share my wrong screen. Oh, come on, you stupid thing. 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. No, 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 no. Ah, you stupid thing. I have a new setup and it's already failing me miserably, isn't it? It's always tech problems. Always tech problems. All right, we'll just have to go this route. All right. There we go. So we're going to sieve through the archaeology news of the last couple weeks and we're going to go as we shake the sieve. Now I'm totally confused which screen I am. We have a slightly different setup with monitors. Got to find all the good nuggets of archaeology news for you. That is my goal, as usual, to get the best stuff that can tell us the most interesting stories. And the first one is from the world of fake archaeology, pseudo-archaeology in the U.S. Congress. Yes. The Midas touch actually brought this to our attention, that Representative Eric Burleson, who is in the Congress and on the Oversight Committee, he believes in giants. He believes in giants. So let's hear what he had to say to Blaze TV in June.
I mean, not to nerd out a little bit, but I think that quantum entanglement in and of itself proves that there is something deeper than the existence that we live on.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if you talk about, do beings exist in that higher dimension, that's another question.
Yeah.
So I remain skeptical, but like you, I'm a believer. I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that angels exist. What commonly comes up is how there is a way that it fits within the biblical narrative, and how many times in the Bible that you know, while they call them angels, but at the end of the day, when you look at it, they're not from Earth. Like these are
described
beings.
they don't look like a human, you know, the way they're described. They do look kind of odd if you actually look at the biblical description of these angels.
Let's not forget about the reptilians. Yeah. We got the reptilians, like, I don't know.
With the Anunnaki. Okay, wait,
Hillary Clinton herself, there might be a reptilian been controlling this government for a long time, dude.
Okay, no, you're making a joke, but why? I bet Rep will believe this. Rep, they call me crazy, but I think there was giants. I believe in the Nephilim. I do believe that was real, Rep, and they're gonna clip this.
We are definitely clipping this and calling it crazy, by the way, because it is.
Giants ever real, in your opinion, Rep? I hope this doesn't get you canceled.
No, I'm going to say I do believe that they were real.
Thank you.
And he should be canceled.
Yes, this is a real guy. This is a real man, because there's no way, it's especially all the pyramids and all this stuff, there's definitely some bigger human beings. I think we are kind of the offspring of that. Wow, Rep, you're so based in reality.
Actually, I'm going to a conference tomorrow, this weekend, that's called NEFCON. It's being hosted by a guy named Tim Alberino, who is, you know, you got to look up Tim Alberino. He's done a lot of work on a lot of this topic. I was introduced to him after my first hearing when we had David Grush come in and the UAP hearing. I had friends from back home that tell me, you got to listen to his podcast because he he has a very different perspective. I listened to it, and it was a rabbit hole that like I ended up listening to the entire.
Wait, time out. How deep down the rabbit hole did you go? Did you get to the part where the Smithsonian's hiding the bones? Did you get to that part of the rabbit hole yet?
Yes.
Yeah. And isn't it weird though?
And guess what?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm on oversight, so we have oversight over the Smithsonian.
Well, let's go in there and look. I'll help you guys. I'll bring the flashlights. I mean, I'll probably accidentally break something. Let somebody actually, don't let me touch it because I'll mess something up. But at the end of Indiana Jones, and I believe this, could call me crazy, there's more truth in the movies than there is, there's truth in the movies, lies in the news. I almost believe movies are more real than the news. I know that even that sounds kind of crazy, but they tell us a lot of stuff in movies. Kind of predictive programming is what they call it. And in Indiana Jones, well, I'm just saying, in Indiana Jones, they're fighting for the most important thing. What is it again? What is they're fighting for? Ark of the Covenant. Ark of the Covenant, duh. And then at the end of the movie, they get the Ark of the Covenant, and what do? They put it in a little crappy wooden box and under a pile of a bunch of junk. They don't even know what it is. So it's like there's stuff in the Smithsonian that paints and tells a picture, tells a story that they don't want us to know. So, Rep, are you seriously going to investigate the Smithsonian? I'm pumped up. This is like good news. This is music to my ears, sir.
We've got to figure out a strategy behind that. So I'll be happy to work with you on that.
Please, I will go after him. Like I said, I'll live in there. Night at the Museum is my favorite movie. I don't.
Oh my God. As Darth Bong put it, we are doomed. Yeah. So apparently this guy, Representative Eric Burleson, is on the oversight committee of the U.S. Congress, and he is gonna investigate giants in the Smithsonian. I mean, how do you even convince people there aren't giants in the Smithsonian? It's not like we can bring everybody into all the storage and open up every single crate for everybody to see. I don't know what else to say. This is just one of those pernicious rumors that that exists, and it's just it's what the fuck. I mean, what the fuck are you supposed to do? And yes, this guy, he presented at this conference, NEFCON, which is, yeah, this is wild. A conference on the Nephilim and UFOs and Bigfoot and stuff like that. And right there is Representative Eric Burleson. This is who people in Missouri are electing to represent U.S. interests and on oversight of things like the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian Institute, we have a guy who believes in Nephilim, which, by the way, Nephilim show up in literally one passage in Genesis where they are mentioned enigmatically. We know nothing about them beyond much later myths that grew up in the medieval period that claim they were giants and they had to do with Atlantis and all this kind of jazz, which is like, has nothing to do with what the Bible actually says. And yes, people believe this is in the Smithsonian now. So yeah, this is kind of scary. This is our government who is apparently going to tear down the Smithsonian, which is exactly on President Trump's agenda anyway. This was him talking recently, for example.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the Smithsonian, I know that your administration is seeking to weed out a lot of this left-wing spin that's in the museums, but we're seeing from people like Brian Stelter or other commentators that they're insinuating that you are trying to change history according to your narrative. What's your response to that, and is there anything you particularly like to do?
Well, we want the museums to treat our country fairly. We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner, which is what many of them, not all of them, but many of them are doing. Our museums have an obligation to represent what happened in our country over the years, good and bad, but what happened over the years in an accurate way.
Thank you, Mr.
So I guess if we put two and two together between the representative, the honorable Representative Eric Burleson and the honorable President Trump, I suppose believing that the Smithsonian does not have giants in their storage makes one woke. So I guess I'm woke now, and I firmly believe there are no giants in the Smithsonian. I firmly believe that the Smithsonian, by and large, does a really good job at displaying the history of America, the history of the world, the natural history of the world, from science to history, for the U.S. people, and does not do so in some politically woke way, except when you define all of science and legitimate study of history as woke, in which case I suppose the Smithsonian then is woke, as are all scientists and all educators by that logic. And this is a real problem. There's an ongoing feud between the Smithsonian Institute and the White House at this moment, and Congress, and we will see how that plays out with time, to see how that impacts the displays in the Smithsonian. There's been some that have been taken down that relate to DEI already. And there's going to be more disputes over what the Smithsonian displays and what they study and funding and things like that. And yes, it is going to go right through the dude who went to NephilimCon and believes in giants, because he's on the oversight committee that's going to be investigating this stuff. And apparently he's going to go in there with like a journalist and find the bones of giants. And it's probably going to be some extinct creature, is what I would guess. On the note of extinct creatures, we have our next story. Gotta sieve the dirt, gotta sieve the dirt, sieve the dirt, sieve the dirt. Evan and Hussein, if you're watching, you guys rock. So colossal biosciences, we have a video coming up on this at some point in the hopefully near future, which will involve an interview with this guy Nick Rawlence. They're apparently next, after bringing back the dire wolf, and by bringing back I mean modifying a gray wolf in a very minor way to make it kind of look like how we might think a dire wolf would look. They've now announced that they plan on de-extincting the New Zealand giant moa, which is a really cool bird. So I sat down with paleontologist and biologist Nick Rawlence from the University of Otago to chat about this topic. We'll hear from him again with regards to some of colossal biosciences tactics and how they engage with the scientific community. But for now, let's think about the moa and what it would take to de-extinct it. The news is Colossal Biosciences has targeted the moa bird as their next target for de-extinction, if you will. And as somebody who researches the moa, do you want to just start off by telling about a bit of your research into the moa?
Yeah, so we've got 9 species of moa in New Zealand. They're spread from one end of the country to the other, from sea level to the alpine zone, and they were one of the major driving evolutionary forces in New Zealand. And within about 200 years of human arrival, they were all extinct. So a lot of the research does is reconstructing New Zealand's prehistoric ecosystem and how it functioned and how it adapted to climate change and human impacts, and how do we actually use that for conservation going forward. So with the moa stuff, we've been looking at what are the impacts of pre-human climate change, and we can see that the species distributions are just waxing and waning and changing in equilibrium with their shifting habitat. But we're also sequencing genomes, the complete genetic blueprints of these individuals, to look at their evolution. What can we say about their evolution, about hybridization, about how they breed? Are they nocturnal? A lot of these questions that have fascinated scientists for decades.
And that definitely requires DNA. So, so what kind of habitat do moa live in then? I mean, they're really large birds, right? Then they're flightless, right? And so what kind of habitat are they occupying, and what are they actually eating? I have no idea.
Yeah, so moa are the only known flightless bird in the world to completely lack any wing bones at all. They've got no wings, and yeah, they're unique among birds.
By the way, that blows my mind that moa have no forelimbs, no wings or anything like that. As a zooarchaeologist, I'm surprised.
Birds, and that's actually what's one of the things that makes their de-extinction so difficult. But if we think of habitat, we've got moa that live in sand dunes at the top of the North Island that are the size of a turkey or a goose, right through to forest specialists, open habitat specialists. We've got the mountain goat of moa, the upland moa that loves rocky areas. We've got heavy-footed moa, which has been described by a famous New Zealand archaeologist, Beverly McCulloch, as a 40-gallon drum walking on little kids' gumboots.
Huh.
So its bum's only that far off the ground. Or for your listeners, think Cartman out of South Park.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right through to the giant moa, which could reach up to about 3 meters tall. And so they live in a vast range of habitats, and some are generalists and some are specialists, and there's no real analog for them at all amongst any of the living birds in the world today.
Interesting. And so they all went extinct. When did humans arrive on the island? And you said it's a very tight 200-year extinction phase.
Yeah, so the latest radiocarbon dates are suggesting around 1250 to 1280 CE, and within 150, 200 years, moa are extinct across the entire country. And we know that from habitat destruction through burning of forests, overhunting. So the males would have incubated the eggs, and the eggs were heavily harvested. There are ovens in early Maori archaeological sites where ancient DNA researchers shown there were like 70 eggs in this one oven in one feast event.
So they were pretty tasty.
they were pretty tasty. So if you take the eggs, you take the male moa that's incubating them. We know that there were plenty of moa for humans to eat. There are archaeological sites south of here, they were excavated in the 70s at Waikawaiti, where ovens were discovered with complete articulated legs still in situ.
That's beautiful.
But they're really slow breeding. You're talking about 5 to 12 years to reach sexual maturity. Long-lived, slow breeding. The modeling that's been done is suggesting that there was no way you could sustainably harvest moa at all. Any level of harvesting, and you would cause their extinction.
Okay. Yeah, just either at a slow level or a fast level. So what do you think about this idea of trying to de-extinct them, I guess, to kind of introduce a few of their genes into a modern species and genetically engineer something that resembles a moa? What are your thoughts on this idea?
I'm against de-extinction. I think by all means we develop the technology, but I think we use it to save what we've got left. There's no point bringing them back. We don't have a moral imperative to undo the sins of the past because we're not going to learn from them. But with the moa, there are a whole lot of ecological concerns to bring them back. There's no habitat. If we think of like New Zealand's been heavily modified, and even for a generalist species, there's little habitat to put them in. And some of the habitats they were in, there's no analog left in New Zealand for these unique habitats. But if you're going to bring them back, you need at least 500 individuals. So this is to make sure they're genetically secure. You want a population that's got the genetic variation of your listeners as opposed to the genetic variation of the English
Are you
royal
saying I
family
only
or
have
the
500
Habsburgs.
listeners?
Yeah. Oh, you definitely got more than that. But we need them to be genetically secure so they're not having issues with inbreeding. And we know what happened to the Habsburgs, or Tutankhamun, who married his sister, and their kids had issues with inbreeding. But there are opportunity costs as well. So who's going to conserve the moa if they get de-extincted? So if you bring them back, are they going to be not adapted enough and require a whole lot of money to conserve them, which will pull that money away from conserving endangered species? Or are they going to be too well adapted and become a pest? But even the technology, I think, is not there yet. So if we think of what Colossal did with the grey wolf, die wolf, that's kind of the easy bit. You're using model organisms, but even then they did you've got a genome 2.5 billion base pairs long. You've got conservatively 1 million individual DNA letters, A, G, C, and T differences between a grey wolf and a die wolf, and they only did 20 edits and 14 genes.
Yeah. I had a conversation with Vincent Lynch about that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If we think of a moa, you're looking at something that's about 1 billion base pairs long for a genome. And conservatively, if you compare that to an emu or the closest living relative of moa, the tinamou, the small flying chicken-sized bird out of South America, you're looking at about 10 million individual differences.
So it's a big difference, yeah.
It's a big difference. And Andy Pask, who's leading the Thylacine de-extinction project with Colossal, has said they want to not just do a few edits, they want to do every single edit to an emu genome to create a moa. And that's a tall order. And it's not just those edits. What you got to think about is there's structural differences in the way that the genomes are packaged and arranged that would need to be
of course.
looked at as well. So I think it's quite a tall order.
So it seems like Peter Jackson's on board. What's the attitude with researchers and locals around New Zealand on this news?
I would say that outside of Peter Jackson and Canterbury Museum and the Ngāi Tahu Research Centre that have teamed up with Colossal, they're all against it. We've got so many endangered species that are more worthy of conservation funding and this funding than de-extincting a moa. There are some arguments that moa could restore lost ecological connections in New Zealand, and the New Zealand forest hasn't realised moa have gone extinct, but there are all of these issues like what I talked about that completely outweigh that. One of the other major issues in New Zealand is Maori are the indigenous people of this country, and we have the Treaty of Waitangi, which is our founding document. So that actually gives Maori rangatiratanga authority rights over taonga treasured species, and that's whether they're living or extinct.
Okay.
Because Maori can trace all their ancestry back to all living plants and animals. So the prevailing view is that the Indigenous engagement that Colossal and Canterbury Museum and Peter Jackson, the Ngāi Tahu Research Centre have done is cherry picking, or as the Indigenous Tasmanian Aboriginal communities we're talking to around Indigenous perspectives of de-extinction, their term is blackcladding. And so it really does look like that Colossal has gone and cherry picked who they want to work with. They've cherry picked their support. And so the interesting thing is the biggest tribe in the South Island is Ngāi Tahu, but they don't cover the entire South Island. There are 8 other tribes up the top of the South Island.
Okay.
Now, within Ngāi Tahu, there are a whole lot of sub-tribes. And there was no engagement amongst all the sub-tribes. And all of our engagement with all these sub-tribes and different iwi tribes around New Zealand, around moa genome sequencing, there's been no support whatsoever. They do not want this. And so it really looks like Colossal and its partners made a captain's call. And that came out in the press release when they said, we speak on behalf of the tribe of Ngāi Tahu. No, you don't. And then they say, we speak on behalf of the South Island. And it's like, the 8 iwi I mentioned before at the top of the South Island that we're working with, they're all dead set against it as well.
Huh. Crazy. Yeah, it's such a move to make. So yeah, they're just gonna keep pretending to de-extinct one species after another and get support of all the celebrities out there, from Joe Rogan to Peter Jackson to George R.R. Martin, in order to raise the money they need to do these, what did somebody say? A vanity project. Which, this is essentially a vanity project. It's to do cool science, which, if you listen to what we're talking about with Nick here and with Vinny on the previous episode I did on the direwolves, it is really cool science. It's just not presented, in my opinion, in a very honest fashion to the public about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And so it's a real issue. And what's even more of an issue is there's been this strange, here, wait, I got to share my screen, don't I? There's been this strange smear campaign that has happened against the critics of Colossal Biosciences. So I was quoted in this article. I actually don't have a subscription to New Scientist, so I can't read it all. I'm not going to pay them their pound. They should give me this for free, since I actually gave them quotes. But Vinny Lynch, who I've had on the channel already to talk about direwolves, and Nick Rawlence, who we were just hearing, they've been hit with a series of articles that smear them. And so same with another critic of Colossal Biosciences, Tori Harridge. And then me and Vinny, we've been hit with copyright claims. You can see my video about me being hit by copyright claims here. None of us know who's behind this smear campaign. It's a little fishy or moa-y or dire-woofy. It's a little woofy that the people that are targeted with these smear campaigns and these copyright claims are all critics of Colossal Biosciences. But Colossal Biosciences, to their credit, denies doing this. I'm going to be doing a video about this, so I don't want to talk too much about it. I'm going to be interviewing. I've already interviewed Nick about this. I plan on interviewing Vinny again and Tori if she's interested in talking about it and putting together a video about the kinds of attacks that scientists have suffered in the wake of critiquing Colossal Biosciences and their communication of the science that they're doing. And I want to reiterate, I think the science they're doing is really cool. I'm not sure why they're doing some of it, but in terms of proof of concept, it's some cool technology. I really just disagree with how they're communicating their science. I think they're not being fair in how they define species. I think they're not being fair in representing what they are doing technologically and scientifically. And so it's a shame to see these critics hit by a mystery smear campaign. And like I said, we're going to cover that in a little more depth since I'm one of the people involved in this. There's going to be some more articles that I know of that I've given quotes for as well on this topic. So it's an ongoing sort of news story in the way that this the disputes between scientists and this specific firm. So yeah, so the more to come on that. Yeah, I mean, it's just the world we live in. It's just run by capitalism and big money and really weird ideas about science. It's really quite depressing to actually have to report some on the news. But let's find some good news stories, okay? Let's go on. Let's go on and do some more sifting. Okay. What's come on? What's next? What do we have coming up next for us? We got a fun one for you. All right. So this is one that is actually a study done by two of my friends, people I've known for several decades, Trevor Luke and Andrew Coe, and their team that's working in central Greece. They have determined that the notoriously cruel Roman emperor named Caligula may have been a plant nerd. So tell me, leave a comment. Are you a plant nerd? Yes or no? I mean, what is a plant nerd? I mean, but this is kind of cool because this is some new information. There's these early Roman emperors from the Augustan dynasty. We sort of already know everything there is to know about them. They are so well reported. There's a whole biography of Caligula written by Suetonius, right? There's archaeological evidence, there's tons of historical evidence, there's artistic evidence. And so it's kind of cool to see that there's a new story that can tell us something brand new about Caligula. So if you're a plant nerd, raise your hand. I am for sure a plant nerd. I'm a little more of an animal nerd, but I am very much a plant nerd. So let's hear what my buddy Trevor has to say about this study here. It's really quite interesting in my mind. It's finally some good news. So Aelius Aristides, what he does is he takes all this hellebore and he sees God, right?
Yeah.
So he sees God
as one does. Right?
As one does when you consume a lot of intoxicating or toxic stuff. And so God then tells him to get all of his entourage and go on a boat. So they go on a boat and they start sailing around. The next thing you know is God then tells him to crash his boat. So he crashes the boat and they all have to swim ashore and regroup. And it's just sort of like, that's what tripping on hellebore does to you.
That's right. This is like a teen movie I'm listening to.
Exactly. He would be like the Johnny Depp in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
There you go,
thing.
Johnny
Hunter
Depp.
S. Thompson is basically who Aelius Aristides was. Let's think about Caligula. Maybe he was like Aelius Aristides, just consuming a little too much of that something.
and he was consuming things.
Yeah.
We know that his wife Caesonia liked to give him aphrodisiacs.
Okay.
And a couple of ancient authors will say, well, the reason why he went mad is because his wife gave him too much aphrodisiac.
That makes
Um,
sense. Yeah, too much Viagra might make someone a little mad. Especially at such a young age.
Permanent priapism, right?
Permanent priapism. There we go. Priapus has entered the conversation.
How can you keep him out? Yeah.
Yeah. Is this why he named his horse the second in command of
Yeah,
the
he
Roman
tried
Emperor?
to appoint his horse consul of Rome,
Yeah.
Incitatus. Yeah.
Was this due to Hellebore or was this due to...
That's a good question. And I think one of the problems that you have with Caligula is even our ancient sources have, conflicting views. Now, it's interesting, Philo describes this guy. He doesn't appear crazy, but he's one of those authors, early authors, contemporaries of Caligula, who do describe him as having mania.
Hmm.
But
So it
then we
might
have
be
to
an
ask
episodic
ourselves.
type thing rather than a permanent type thing.
I mean, it could be, or it could be that we face the challenge, which we so often do when we try to do a medical or psychological reading of history. Their concepts are different from ours,
Yeah, that's a good
right?
point. Yeah.
And we can't just assume because, Seneca said he was mad, Philo said he was mad, that, he's schizophrenic or something like that. Though, people have adopted those kinds of interpretations of Caligula. It's a popular thing to do to this day. So, the article that we did was an attempt to use the text very carefully in conjunction with the archaeological work that we've been doing to like get behind all of those layers of scholarship and speculation and try to get at Caligula the historical man a little bit more.
So this mostly just comes from a really detailed reading and then, I don't know, I guess a multiple sets of evidence to look at one passage specifically in Suetonius, right? That's
Yes,
kind of what sets
yeah.
it off.
First of all, I think the important thing to know about the passes is it's just one tiny little anecdote in
Hmm.
Suetonius. And any of us who've read Suetonius know, we know that he just loves these little funny anecdotes, very
Hmm.
colorful. And he's a master at arranging these in a particular way to create a certain effect. The way that he's organized the biography, which is highly unusual, he splits it between the emperor and the monster.
Okay.
And so people like to say, okay, he was a good emperor, or at least popular emperor, until he falls sick. Then he becomes mad and the monster comes out. And so there's like a really neat, people like to sort of categorize this very neatly, putting together the illness with Suetonius and saying good emperor and then really terrible emperor, and attributing that either to mental illness or madness. But there's certain evidence that really conflicts with that. Philo of Alexandria actually met Caligula and described his interactions with Caligula. And even though he hated Caligula, the guy that he describes sounds an intelligent but arrogant man and also intolerant, but not mad, not crazy.
Yeah.
So, in the section on the brutality of his language, Suetonius gives us two anecdotes. The first one is an interaction with his brother and co-heir, Gemellus,
Hmm.
who will not too long afterward be killed by Caligula, and then this one about Hellebore that we base the article on. But I think it's worth noting that we have these two things together, and the ostensible topic here is the brutality of the rhetoric.
Hmm.
But at the same time, two of the examples right next to each other have to do with medicine. So, Suetonius, being the sort of multi-layered author that he is, putting these stories that have medicine and poison in them back to back.
Hmm.
So Gemellus had some sort of upper respiratory problem and he was coughing a lot. And so he took medicine. Now, Caligula notices that he's taking these drugs, but he's not exactly sure why. But he thinks because Caligula belonged in this family that was, riven with paranoia about poisoning, because his father, Germanicus, believes he's poisoned right before he dies. His wife, Agrippina, Caligula's mother, comes to believe exactly the same thing. And so the family becomes obsessed with
With poisoning.
poisoning. So much so that we know other members of the family even specifically studied the art of antidotes to poisons so that, they would be armed against the possibility of being poisoned. So he takes these drugs. Caligula is like, hey, what are you taking? What is this? An antidote against Caesar? Are you thinking that I'm going to poison you and you're trying to protect yourself from that? I don't think it's too different from, you know, politics today, where you get a powerful person like the president of the United States. You say this person has a thin skin, uh, doesn't like a challenge to their authority. And when their underlings do things that challenge their view of themselves or how they want to appear to others, then they freak out and take this out on that underling who's made them look bad. And here's what Caligula has done with his brother. But the episode that we were really concerned with is the next one, and I
Mhm.
want to set this up because it's a heck of a lot of fun. It's like the ultimate cool coincidence.
Okay.
So I had been working on Caligula, but I was going with Andrew Coe to do his summer work in Greece, and Andrew is a genius, has come up with this amazing project where he's testing vessels for residues to
Mhm.
figure out what exactly it is that ancient people were using in their recipes or storing in particular vessels. He's done groundbreaking work in ancient wine. He's worked on perfume on Crete. He's really got this wonderful skill set where he's bringing together science and archaeology and then adding texts into the mix for a really transdisciplinary approach to discovering how ancient people interacted with plants, both
Okay.
the pharmacological and others. So we've decided as a group that we're going to really dig into the study of hellebore. And we're
Okay.
in the right place to do it because throughout antiquity, the
Okay.
association between Adikara and hellebore was very strong, such that you couldn't bring up hellebore without thinking Adikara. And I thought, wait a second, Caligula. There's a story about Caligula, Adikara, and hellebore.
You're like,
It's like,
bam,
what am
my
I?
worlds are colliding.
Yeah, in a beautiful way. And so I thought, okay, I need to work on this. And so we just went for it from there. We decided that this is the topic that we're going to work on. But here's the anecdote. This is Suetonius's Life of Caligula. We're in the monster section on brutal rhetoric, and he says, an ex-praetor, who's a senator, had retired to Adikara for his health. He sent frequent requests for an extension of his leave, but Caligula had him put to death, adding that a man who had not been helped by so long a course of hellebore needed to be bled.
Uh-huh. So how do you combine this with the research on the ground?
At the time, we are looking for hellebore.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things that we discovered very quickly is that it's very hard to find hellebore in Adikara. Like
Huh.
you go to Adikara today, and it's not like you're going to look down on the ground and say, oh, there's your hellebore. We went hiking around looking for this hellebore, but eventually we thought, the climate's changed.
Okay.
Climate change is real, and it's changed since antiquity because
Yeah,
climate change is,
definitely.
in a sense, always happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a question of the severity and how quickly it's happening. But what we figured is it's too dry here. It's too hot. Even though we're here in May, it's already probably too hot for this hellebore. So we scaled up Mount Helicon
Okay.
to find hellebore,
And that's where you're able to
and
find it.
that's where we were able to find it. Uh, but even then, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of local help. We had a fellow by the name of George Cerimes who was with us. Who's a guy on the Yale faculty who
Mm-hmm.
he's Greek, and he would intervene, speak Greek for us, and help us figure out where it was.
Okay.
And it was kind of a laborious process. In fact, we found a woman, a local, sort of like a hobbyist, I would say. This one particular woman said, "Hey, I know where hellebore is."
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, "Great, take us to it." So we drove up Mount Helicon and we're following her. Finally, she points down and she says, "There is hellebore." And in Greek, of course, it's elevora.
Elevera,
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
elevoro.
And was it there?
It was not. That's the funny thing. She actually showed us a Dane's wort. Now that's important to know. It's actually historically consistent, and this is one of those challenges. That is, in antiquity, they thought about plants primarily through their properties.
Yeah.
What does it do?
Mm-hmm.
And so you get a lot of misidentifications.
That makes sense.
Um,
That happens a lot, even with mushrooms today.
Yeah. I mean, pick the wrong mushroom, put it in your stew, and you're dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
It may look like a very harmless variety, but it may be the toxic variety that just looks similar. But she really confirms something that is important to know, and that is that the identification of these plants you have to really be careful about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the science that Andrew brings to the table is so important. But on the same road, just a few yards up, we just kind of walked off the side of the road, the shoulder of the road, into the woods, into a nice little shaded area. And there it was, right in front of us, our hellebore. And once we found the one, we started to find stands of it in quite a few places.
Perfect.
So the upshot is that Caligula knew about medicine. And the argument that I make is that this was family knowledge. One of his ancestors, through his grandmother Livia, was cured of epilepsy at Adikara with hellebore.
That's an interesting coincidence.
Yeah, you would think it's a coincidence, right? But I mean, this shows up in our historical sources. We know that Roman historians often pulled on the knowledge of families, important families, to, populate their histories with important facts. So it's probably the case, most likely the case, that the imperial family had this knowledge through Livia. And so there was this interest in medicine. She passes that information down to Tiberius and then Caligula. So Caligula is the inheritor of this medical knowledge.
Huh.
And so the question then becomes, how exactly did this senator get to Adikara? Was it the imperial family that sent him there in the first place? And is this episode where he's consulting with Caligula really about Caligula signing his death warrant? Or is it an interaction with an emperor who knew about medicine and was offering his own opinion?
Bloodletting instead of hellebore.
Bloodletting instead of hellebore, which we know is an alternative to hellebore, or a treatment that can be engaged in alongside a hellebore treatment in the writings of Celsus, who wrote his medical manual in the reign of Tiberius, Caligula's predecessor.
Great. This is awesome. So now we can think of the Roman imperial family from this period as botanists and even familiar with medicine just as much as they were familiar with ruling.
Archaeology is confirming this. They found Caligula's garden in Rome. That's where he probably grew his own plants, his own herbs on the banks of the Tiber.
Cool.
Yeah.
Trevor, thank you so much. That was fantastic. So fantastic. So it looks like the first imperial family, which we know of for all their assassinations and poisonings, it's due to the fact that they knew plants quite well, and they knew where to go to get them. They knew how to get them, and they would go, for example, to this place Adikara, sort of just south of Delphi, which is where Trevor and Andrew are working, which was a town that was famous for its hellebore. And the family was very familiar with this and was clearly familiar with all of its effects, which I think is important here. Somebody in the chat, Stoic Dissension, noticed that ingestion of those plants like hellebore and the nightshades and datura in the Americas is so crazy to us these days. They must have had much more knowledge of the dosage back then, which is a really good point. You should not be consuming the kind of intoxicating drugs that the ancient people consumed because they are poisonous by our standards. You can die from hellebore. Like I sort of got off early on in that interview with some of my own research into hellebore, not taking it, but ancient people that took it. It had a really massive effect on people, okay? This is poisonous stuff, but of course, just like anything, alcohol can be poisonous too. I don't have a beer tonight. I've been a little under the weather lately, but alcohol can be poisonous too, but if you drink enough of it, right? And it's the same sort of thing. Any sort of poison, if you just take a smaller dosage, you might get high, but I wouldn't recommend experimenting with poisonous plants to try to get high. It's not really worth that kind of stuff. But what is really cool about this is we have a much clearer picture of the imperial family at this time and their knowledge of plants. And in particular, we have a clearer picture of Caligula. Some of his insanity, it seems like, is probably overblown. And some of his cruelty and some of the murders that happen might come down to the knowledge of plants that comes from his grandmother, Livia, the wife of Augustus and mother of Tiberius. And so it's actually kind of interesting. I'll be very interested to see the kind of residue analysis that Andrew will be working on. And I got to say, Trevor, actually, he was a PhD student when I was an undergrad at Penn. And so he actually was a TA in several classes and he taught me and stuff like that. So it's really cool to be able to cover some of his research here because I think that that's really, really cool and interesting to be able to do, to highlight some of the research of my friends. We're still discovering new stuff about the Roman imperial family. And I personally think that that is awesome. That, look, the reality is that history is alive. History is constantly being updated and rewritten as archaeologists and historians and philologists, those of us that study the texts and the artifacts from the past, get a chance to look at things, or in some cases, look at things with fresh eyes and update our knowledge of them. So here we go. Let's sift through the news for our final story of the evening. I got a special one for you. This one's going to be fun. So there's a study that translates. We have a new myth, guys. We have a brand new myth. This is the first time anybody has heard this myth in thousands of years. Let's hand it over to Yoni and hear this brand new Sumerian myth that has been published for the first time, and it is 4,400 years old. So this is really cool. You in for a treat? We're handing it off to the lovely Jonita Martini. Jonita Martina! Here we go.
The marshes were glistening by themselves. Small carp verily existed. The great river was glistening by itself. Great carp verily existed. White cows created like white birds. Brown cows created like brown wood. Black cows created like black coal. These are Ishkur's cows, the great young man, the lordship of Enlil, the mighty thing. His cows are eating grass in the netherworld for his sake, because the Lord has been living in the netherworld, because Ishkur has been living in the Kur. My mother Eshpesh, the beautiful person, who used to make bread for 240 liters of flour. Children were born, but they were carried off to the netherworld. Enlil addressed the Anunnaki gods.
My son is held captive in the netherworld. Who will bring him back? Ishkur is held captive in the netherworld. Who will bring him back?
Fox shall go to the netherworld. He did not refuse the bread, but put it in a bag instead. He did not refuse the water, but poured it in a water skin instead. Day, the sun god Utu. Night, the god.
There we go. You are the first people to hear a dramatic reading of this myth in the last 4,400 years. 4,400 years. So what's going on here? So there's a few interesting things. First of all, it's very fragmentary. So it's tough to tell exactly what's going on here, but it fits into these kind of myths of foxes, and in particular, foxes as Anunnaki, the gods from these Sumerian periods. So Anunnaki, wait, Anunnaki? You mean like
angels?
Let's not forget about the reptilians. We got the reptilians, like, I don't know.
With the Anunnaki. Okay, wait,
the Anunnaki? Everybody should be excited. This is for all of you pseudo-archaeologists. We have a new Anunnaki. We have the fox who went to the underworld at the bidding of the god Enlil to save his son Ishkur. So this is what this myth is about. It is most likely from the city of Nippur. And one of the things that the news gets wrong is about how new this myth is. This is the first time this myth has been published of captive storm gods and cunning foxes, new insight into early Sumerian mythology with an edition of NI 12501. And it is, as Samuel Noah Kramer put it back in a long time ago, another Enlil myth still unpublished, which that's the reality here. This tablet has actually been known since the excavations of Nippur. It actually was on the cover of this book by Samuel Noah Kramer, from the Tablets of Sumer, 25 Firsts of Man's Recorded History. And this is just the first time that it's been fully studied and published, which is really cool. And it gives us a new picture and an updated look at what's going on with mythology in the Sumerian world. But at the same time, it's not actually new, because cuneiformologists, Sumeriologists, Middle East, people who specialize on the ancient Middle East, the ancient Near East, they have actually known about this tablet, and it's been published in various ways, or at least referred to in various ways in various texts. So while you're going to see everywhere that there's a brand new myth, it's only new to us. If you were an expert who knew your cuneiform and knew your real shit on ancient Near East religions, you already knew about this tablet because it's existed in footnotes and references in academic literature for a long time. But you, everybody watching, you just heard for the first time the dramatic reading of it performed by Yonita Martini, which is, I think, really, really cool. Now, there's another little side note here. We sort of brought up the Anunnaki that the Blaze people believe in, and all these pseudo-archaeologists. This, again, is relating to real sort of stuff. So Yana Matushak is at the Institute for Study of Ancient Cultures at the University of Chicago. Well, the news that just came out of the University of Chicago is that the University of Chicago is about to cut a wide range of degrees that they offer and programs related to humanities and languages. So when we're talking about what Yana Matushak teaches and what she does at the University of Chicago, it is currently under threat right now. And so if we want to see more new myths available for the public, for us to listen to dramatic readings on, we need to support scholarship. We need to support higher education. We have to be able to support this stuff because it is being cut right now all around us, from the Smithsonian that is under threat for oversight from people who believe in giant bones being hidden there, to actual cuts that are going on at the University of Chicago, to the very department that published this article that has been making the headlines all over. It's all under threat. We're not going to be able to have more old news with Flint Dibble if these kind of cuts to archaeology, history, and the sciences keep happening. This is real dire. I cannot emphasize this enough. We are in a world where there are threats to these kind of studies, to the teaching of ancient languages, of history, and of archaeology. And for the research of it. We were supposed to put in a proposal for the National Science Foundation, and I sort of said to my collaborator, I'm not interested. I don't want to do this because we have no idea if the NSF is going to be giving any money whatsoever to archaeologists next year. Archaeology is not a huge part of their budget. The budget of the NSF is not a big part of the budget of the U.S. I have a conversation about this from January or February on these kind of cuts. But why would I spend 100 hours of my life putting together a grant proposal that might not even be read because we don't understand the budget of the U.S. government and whether they want to actually fund archaeology or not, and history and the study of languages? This is what is going on here. So I hate to end it on such dire notes, but make sure everybody give a like, give a comment. I've read elsewhere that comments are what actually feeds the YouTube algorithm. So as soon as we're done streaming, please make sure you go ahead and give it a like and give it a comment. And I have a feeling that these old news live streams will be moving to every other week. I apologize for the delay this week. I've been ill since my last infusion. I'm starting to do a little better, as you can see. And yeah, so I'm just going to keep moving on, and I'll keep doing some more. Look forward to some new videos coming out soon, too. Otherwise, it's been a nice episode of 3 of Old News with Flint Dibble. We expect to cover some more stories in the coming weeks about what's coming out in archaeology, history, and mythology, and ancient languages and stuff like that, because despite all the cuts that are going on, there's still all kinds of really cool work that's going on that we can use to uncover our own humanities past. Thank you all. I'm Flint Dibble. Have an old one.
Rhymes and riddles, tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, Flint, Dibble. Rhymes and riddles.